I was furious, absolutely enraged, especially with my wife, Mar. "It's me, Joe Thompson." How did I know she was angry? Well, she was pressed against the car door, trying to distance herself from me as much as possible, and had a scowl on her face that could have cut through milk. Why was she so angry with me? I guess she had a good reason. I had ruined her night in a terrible way. I felt awful for embarrassing my wife of 10 years and the mother of our 3 children. I had made a really stupid move. So, what did I do to embarrass and ruin her night? I grabbed the wrong key. You see, the McLarens, our neighbors, throw wild parties. Mary had been wanting to join in the action and had gotten an invitation through a friend of a friend. We had never gone to one of their parties before, but my wife, with whom I've been married for a decade, forgot to mention that this party was different. She didn't tell me in advance that at this party, all the wives had to throw their house keys into a bowl, and then the husbands would randomly choose a key and take the corresponding wife to the master suite for a night of, well, fun, not so innocent. As the party was coming to an end, I suddenly realized what was about to happen, and I got scared. I had never been so angry with Mary before. I grabbed her arm and took her to the kitchen. "Did you know this party was going to end like this?" I asked her. She smiled with a grimace. "Yes," she said. "And why didn't you tell me beforehand?" I demanded. She didn't answer because she knew I wouldn't agree unless I was forced. I definitely wouldn't have agreed. "I always have a choice," I said. "Let's go." "We can't leave now," protested Mary. "It would be rude. Besides, it's just for one night, it'll add some excitement to our marriage." "I could do without that kind of excitement," I said. "Let's go," I repeated firmly. Mary tried to resist, but I let go of her arm and moved towards the bowl full of keys. I wasn't informed about this part of the party, I announced loudly to the group gathered around the bowl. "I'm not sharing my wife with any of you." I searched through the keys until I found the one with the red plastic cover, the key to our house, and I held it up so everyone could see. I wasn't informed of the rules beforehand, and I don't believe in breaking my marriage vows. They mean everything to me. Some people murmured and gave me angry looks, but I didn't care. I looked at my wife, who was furious and her face red with embarrassment. "Mary," I said, "you have a decision to make right now. You can come with me and forget this madness, or you can stay and never come home again." All eyes turned to my wife, who hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I apologize for my husband's behavior," she said to the group. "I would love to stay, but it's better if I leave given the circumstances." And with anger and reluctance, she followed me to the car. "You're a selfish idiot," she yelled as soon as we were in the car. "How could you embarrass me like that in front of everyone? They'll never invite us again." "Embarrass you, Mary?" I responded. "What about how you embarrassed me by not telling me about your plan to be with someone else tonight?" "Well, you were going to be with another wife, so we both would have had fun," she said. "I don't want to be with another woman, Mary," I said. "I reserve that for you, and it's disturbing to hear, after 10 years of marriage, that you want to be with someone else." "It would have only been once," she said. "After all the nights we've spent together, it's just one night with someone else after being a good wife for 10 years. Isn't that reasonable?" "Honestly, Mary, no, it isn't," I said. "I can't believe what I'm hearing, but obviously, this means a lot to you, right?" "Yes, it does," she said. "I've been waiting for this for weeks. It's my chance to be more than just a wife and mother, to have an affair, to be admired, and to have fun with another man for a few hours." I slammed on the brakes and made a U-turn on the street, speeding back to the McLaren's house. "Mary," I shouted as I turned, "what are you doing? I demand to know if spending a night with another man means so much to you, Mary." "Then go ahead and do it," I said. I stopped in front of their house. It looked like all the other cars were still there. "Looks like you're not too late to join in," I said. "Go on. Enjoy your night with some random guy." I hope it satisfies you in ways that I can't. It's just something new, an adventure, she said, reaching for the door handle. You're perfect for me, but you know I can't go in there alone. We both have to participate, each with a new partner. I already said I don't want to be part of this, Mary, I said. I've never cheated on you, and I won't until we're no longer married. What does that mean? I asked, my voice softening. I'll call you and let you know, she said confidently. It would mean a lot to me. Not a chance, I said, my voice cold and harsh. I'm sure your new guy will give you an adventure after spending the night with you. That makes it sound so bad, she said, her eyes filling with tears. He won't be my lover, just someone I'll have a connection with for one night. I love you. You're the only man for me. Do you really believe that, Mary? I asked, my voice filled with disbelief. There's no way you can love me and do what you're planning. Let me clarify this. You just want someone new for intimacy, right? You want a new guy to get you pregnant. That's harsh. She said, tears streaming down her face. You know I'm on birth control, so I won't get pregnant. It's just one night with someone new. It will be exciting. I won't let you ruin this night for me, she said, her voice firmer. Now I just want some time with someone new, and you won't stop me. I'll do it, and you need to accept it. Understood? Tomorrow morning, I'll be back and I'll make you forget all of this. Her voice was full of false confidence. You'll still want me, she said. I'll make sure of that. I won't want you anymore after you've let another man have what I thought was only mine, I said, my voice full of pain and betrayal. This is becoming ridiculous, she said, her voice full of exasperation. You belong to me and you'll still want me. I'll make sure of that. Mary, listen to me, I said urgently. If you go back into that house, we're done. Your night will cost you your marriage and your family. No, I won't, she said, her voice filled with false confidence. We're married, and we'll stay married. We're meant to be together. I love you, and I know you love me. We'll get through this, I promise. You're breaking my heart, Mary, I said, my voice full of pain. Don't be so dramatic, she said, her voice filled with annoyance. Think of this as sending me on an adventure. It's an adventure for you, but it's the end for us, I said, my voice full of finality. She opened the car door and began to get out. I'll see you tomorrow morning, she said, her voice full of false confidence. Sadly, I shook my head, and as soon as I pushed the door to close, I slammed the accelerator and drove off, skidding and leaving tire marks for half a block. I looked at her through the rearview mirror as I sped down the street. She was standing there on the sidewalk with her mouth open. She hadn't moved when I turned the corner and disappeared from view. I expected her to call me immediately, admitting she was wrong and asking me to come back for her, but she didn't. Oh, she probably thought I'd be upset for a couple of days and then she could smooth things over by taking me to bed. Well, she was completely wrong. My father always said that if a woman was considering cheating, she had already crossed that line mentally. And if a married woman was seriously contemplating it, she had already broken her vows. It's okay to admire someone, but if she's planning how to make it a reality, she's already betrayed you. As much as it hurt, Mary had ended our marriage, and it was time to move on. The real tragedy was our 3 children, Jenny, 9, Recco, 8, and YY, 4. How could I imagine life without them every day? But I couldn't let Mary's actions go without consequences. The kids were with my mom for the weekend, giving me time to plan my next steps. I drove aimlessly for a while, still hoping Mary would call and ask me to come pick her up, but it became clear that she had made a decision. I finally came up with a plan and drove home. Just as I parked in the driveway, my phone rang. I hoped it was her asking me to come for her, but the caller ID showed it wasn't her. I answered anyway. There was loud music and laughter in the background, and a male voice spoke. Hey, I'm Mac from the party you left. Mary gave me your number. She's really excited about tonight and wants you to be part of it too. You're a lucky guy. All the guys here are hoping to get their key. She keeps saying someone will have a memorable night. Come back and join us. There are some hot women here who can't wait to have fun with you. Go to hell, Mac, I said, my voice filled with anger, and screw everyone else at your party, including my unfaithful wife. I hope you all suffer horrible fates. I hung up and went inside. It took me less than 20 minutes to pack 2 suitcases with enough clothes for a week or two. I grabbed my laptop and shaving kit and loaded everything into the car. I looked for our marriage license and tore it up, then crushed my wedding ring with a hammer. It took a few hits to crush it, but once I did, I placed the pieces on Mary's pillow. I locked the door and left, driving into the night. I wanted to find a motel a few miles out of town, but first I stopped by the McLaren's house again. Some cars had already left the party, and a few people were outside chatting while pairing up for the night. I assumed Mary had either left with her new partner or was with Mr. McLaren himself. The motel I found was in the next town. It didn't seem luxurious, but it had parking in the back, which would keep my car out of sight if anyone was looking for it. After securing the car, I bought a 6-pack of beer at the convenience store next door and decided to watch some television. The first 2 beers calmed me, and as I opened the third, my phone rang. But since I knew it wasn't a call for me to pick her up, I let it go to voicemail. I'm being dramatic about this, said Mary's voice in the message. Wilson told me what you said. I've told you countless times it's just for one night. I'm just trying something new with a guy, and that doesn't make me a bad person. I promise that even though I'm a little sore, I'll make it up to you when I get home tomorrow. How did you get our house key from the Bull? They made a new one for me. The guy who took it is named Glenn, and he seems nice. He's married and has kids, just like us. I'm at his house with him. His wife and partner for the night are also here, but they're in another part of the house, far enough away so we don't hear each other when things heat up. You know how loud I can get when we're together. I know you're upset, but I promise I won't let him do anything we haven't done. I told Glenn we should keep it simple, you know, maybe just regular stuff. He agreed, especially since it's my first time with someone else. I'll take care of myself before I get home. Nothing left over for you, sweet dreams, lover. See you in the morning. I felt like I was going to vomit. I had never realized I was married to such a foolish woman. Sure, Mary had always been a little absent-minded, but that was part of her charm. Now her carelessness was in plain view, and it had cost us our marriage, and maybe even her relationship with our children. There was no way she thought I would take her back after letting some guy have her and rub up against her. So I can't talk much, her voice was filled with false sweetness. Shut up, Mary, I said, my voice filled with rage. This could be the last time you hear from me. You don't realize what you've done, but you'll find out soon. Enjoy your time with Glenn because the consequences will be worse than you can imagine. Understand this, Mary, once Glenn touches you, our marriage will be over. Do you hear me? I never thought I'd say this, but I hate you more right now than I've ever loved you. I continued, my voice filled with pain and betrayal. I can't wait to be completely free of you. My lawyer will contact you next week. I hung up, and in 30 seconds, she called me again. I let it go to voicemail. Why are you acting this way? Said Mary's voice in the message, sounding like she was about to cry. How could you say those things to me? I'm your wife, you can't let me have this one night. Glenn and I just started, and now you're ruining it for me. I don't know if I'll be able to enjoy being with him the way I want. No, we're not getting a divorce. I'll be home in the morning, and we can sort this out. I'm coming home now, but I promised Glenn I'd stay with him tonight. Please understand, darling, I have to do this. He took my key, and I promised him I'd be with him. Does he really want that now? Oh God, please, oh yes, please try to understand, darling. See you in the morning. I couldn't resist. I called her again, and this time, I let it ring several times before it went to voicemail. It was clear Glenn was with my wife, and she was enjoying it. From your last message, I can tell Glenn is already with you, and you're enjoying it, I said, my voice cold and harsh. You can spend the night with him, experiencing all the new sensations he's giving you, Mary, but you couldn't keep your promise to me. I've loved you and been faithful for over 10 years. I don't recognize you anymore. You won't see me in the morning, and maybe you'll never see me again, but you'll receive the divorce papers next week, and I'll accuse you of adultery. Now that he's doing what only I should have been allowed to do, you're officially unfaithful. You can cheat with any man you want from now on, but I will definitely keep my promise not to ever be with you again. She didn't return my call. I knew how absorbed she would get during intimacy. She would enter a world where nothing else mattered except her and the man she was with. I was sure they were completely focused on each other. By then, I had finished the rest of the six-pack, and the alcohol helped. Eventually, I fell asleep with tears still running down my face. I woke up about 4 hours later, and reality hit me hard. My wife had taken a lover, and now I needed to figure out how to protect my kids, get her out of my life, and make everyone at that party as miserable as possible. We lived in a small town in Texas, and I knew that Texas law allowed for divorce due to adultery. I could avoid paying alimony and maybe even get custody of my kids. I needed a top-notch lawyer, and I needed one fast. I took a shower and changed clothes. At 7:30, I called my mom and told her what had happened. She was as shocked as I was by Mary's actions. She had the kids for the weekend and assured me she wouldn't tell them anything. I told her I would pick them up once I had a plan. I assumed Mary would probably get custody of the kids, at least for now. It was hard to admit, but she had been a good mother and wife until the night before. After hanging up with my mom, I went to the nearby diner to have breakfast. As I parked and headed toward the door, my phone rang. I debated whether to answer but decided not to and let it go to voicemail. She didn't leave a message at first, but then she called again immediately, repeating herself until she finally left a message, sobbing. "Frank, answer the damn phone. Talk to me. What do you mean by, maybe I'll never see you again? And what's all this talk about divorce papers? You can't leave me, Frank. We have 3 beautiful kids who need both of us. Why did you destroy our marriage license and crush your wedding ring? I gave you that on our wedding day and promised you'd wear it forever. It's a symbol of our eternal love. I knew you'd be upset with me, but I never expected you to go this far. Frank, I love you deeply, but I really needed that special night with Glenn. It meant so much to me, it made me feel alive and young again. I forgot how exciting it is to laugh and scream at the same time. But as incredible as last night was, Frank, you're still the only man for me. I know how to make it up to you and ease your hurt feelings. Please come home so I can show you how much I love you and fix things." She started crying again, and it was hard to understand her words. "Frank, why can't you see that I just needed one night with someone new to feel wanted and loved again? It was just a moment, Frank, nothing more. Please, Frank, talk to me. I love you. You and our kids mean everything to me." Her voice weakened, and she continued sobbing until the message ended. I stayed outside the diner, completely stunned. Mary had been harboring these feelings throughout our marriage, and now, suddenly, they surfaced in her early 30s. Mary still looked as beautiful as ever, 5 feet 5 inches tall, 130 pounds, with dark blonde hair that reached her shoulders and clear blue eyes. She had a fantastic figure, and her breasts were the perfect size. Although her hips were a bit wider after having 3 kids, she still turned heads wherever she went. So what was this nonsense about needing to feel desired by another man? I had always shown her how much I loved and desired her. I surprised her with flowers, took her on dates at least once a week, and told her every day how beautiful she was and how much I loved her. Our intimacy had been incredible, or so I thought. We made love at least 3 times a week, and I always made sure she had one or more climaxes. I lost my appetite but entered the diner anyway. I found an empty table and ordered scrambled eggs, toast, and black coffee. I barely touched my breakfast, but I drank at least 6 cups of coffee. I had never felt so empty and devastated in my life. I had heard people say they wished they were dead, and now I understood what they meant. The only thing that kept me going was the thought of my kids. I had to live for them. I had to navigate through this living nightmare that Mary had created and build a future for them. That thought alone filled me with determination. I would persevere. Mary called my phone about 20 times that day, but I always let it go to voicemail. She pleaded with me to understand, but she never apologized for her actions. She never admitted she had done anything wrong. Instead, she insisted that she had needed that night and that it was my responsibility to support her. They had been intimate 3 times that night, and once again in the morning. She mentioned being worried that she hadn't turned off her phone in time and that I might have heard them the first time, just when Glenn had finished. She hoped I hadn't heard too much. She really knew how to hurt me deeply. I couldn't believe she had been so foolish. However, on the positive side, I now had solid audio evidence of her infidelity to use against her in court, though I wasn't sure if it would be enough. The recordings were very convincing and left no room for doubt. I planned to find a good lawyer the next day and gather all the necessary information. I visited my kids at my mom's house. She told me that Mary had already called to ask about the kids and my whereabouts. Mom explained that I was upset about what had happened and didn't want to see or talk to Mary. Apparently, Mary started crying, saying that I didn't understand. Mom told her that no man would understand how a wife could rub an affair in her husband's face. Mary asked if she should pick up the kids, but my mom suggested it would be better for them to stay a few more days until things calmed down. The kids were happy to see me but wondered where their mom was. I told them she had been busy with something important for herself and that they would stay with Grandma a little longer. We played games and had dinner together before I hugged and kissed them goodbye and returned to my motel. Tomorrow was going to be a busy day, but before wrapping up the day, I had one more thing to do, more like a quick stop. As soon as I saw my house, tears started flowing again. I cried for what had been lost, knowing it was gone forever. I was surprised not to see any unfamiliar cars in the driveway, although there might be one in the garage. Seeing only the kitchen light on downstairs made me think Mary was alone, at least for tonight. Then it hit me, I still had feelings for her. No, I wouldn't take her back after what she'd done, but it hurt deeply imagining her betraying me with another man. I tried to resist the urge to spy on her, but I gave in. I parked a block away and walked back to look through the kitchen window. She was sitting at the table with an empty vodka bottle beside her. Her hair was disheveled, and mascara ran down her face. She was wearing a robe, with her head resting on the table, eyes closed. It was clear she had been crying, surrounded by a pile of tissues. For a moment, I felt sorry for her, but then I remembered her betrayal, and my sympathy faded. I wanted to lash out, but instead, I walked back to my car and left. However, there was a hint of satisfaction, maybe she was starting to realize the gravity of her actions. If she wanted to, she could passionately call her lover, Glenn. On Monday, I arrived early and had a busy agenda. At the diner, I had scrambled eggs, toast, and coffee, and this time, I finished everything. After that, I called my mom and spoke to each of my kids, reassuring them of my love and promising to see them soon. Then I contacted work and informed my executive assistant that I would be handling personal matters for the next few days. I told her she could call or email if something urgent came up. She sensed something was wrong but didn't press me, promising to explain later. In my last year of college, I shared an apartment with 2 good friends, John and Mark. We had formed a strong bond, and even though we didn't see each other often, we stayed connected over the years. My major had been in computer science, John studied business management, and Mark pursued a law career. I called John first and asked if both of them could meet me for drinks around 6 o'clock. I needed their advice on a serious matter, and John agreed to contact Mark. We decided to meet at a bar near the beach. I arrived early, and shortly after 5 o'clock, Mark showed up, followed by John 10 minutes later. We greeted each other warmly and found a table on the patio, ordering drinks and toasting. "What's going on?" I asked. John said, "Your call sounded serious. Mary got me, and she made sure I knew it." I confessed and then proceeded to tell them the whole story. "Shit, that's tough," exclaimed John. "I can't even imagine her doing something like that." "Same here," Mark chimed in. "But she did it without shame or regret, and she still thinks I'm exaggerating. Can you believe it?" I said, shaking my head. "So what's your plan?" asked Mark, taking a sip of his beer. "That I want the divorce, and I want to teach Glenn a lesson, whoever he is, along with the other idiots at the party," I responded, my voice filled with determination. "But more than anything, I want to fight for custody of my kids." "Getting custody might not be simple," Mark warned. "Unless she's been a neglectful mother. If she's bringing random guys home and having affairs while the kids are there, you might have a case. Otherwise, if she's generally a good mom, she'll probably get custody, and you'll have to pay maintenance." "I can handle that, as long as I get to spend time with them whenever I want," I answered. Mark nodded. "The courts usually prefer both parents to be involved and fit for the children." "What about finances?" I asked, changing the subject. "Mary stays home with the kids, and she's probably making a good six-figure salary. What's in your checking accounts, savings, investments, 401k, IRAs? Do you have all of that?" "When you add it up, it's probably around $700,000 or $800,000. Maybe a little more. The court will probably split that evenly and give Mary the house and custody," added Mark. "But if you can prove she cheated, which it looks like you have a good case for, you might not have to pay alimony. Do you know any really good divorce lawyers?" I asked. It turned out Mark did. One of the associates at his firm was one of the best family law attorneys in Texas. Her name was Lisa, and he offered to set up a meeting for me. We raised our glasses once more, had a couple more drinks, and then said our goodbyes. Suddenly, I felt better than I had in a while. As I drove back to my motel, my mind raced with all the tasks ahead. My phone rang, and when I saw the caller ID, I knew it was Mary. After a brief hesitation, I stopped to answer. "What's going on, Mary?" I asked, getting straight to the point. "What do you think I want?" She responded, her voice full of false sweetness. "I want my husband back at home where he belongs. Unfortunately for you, Mary, your little getaway with Glenn makes it impossible for me to come home ever again," I answered firmly. She broke down in tears. "Don't say that, don't you dare," she begged. "It was just one night away from you after 10 years, and that's not enough for a divorce. Think again, Mary," I said, my voice cold and firm. "When a married woman sleeps with someone new, whether it's for one night or a second, it's considered adultery. I warned you countless times, and I meant it. You asked for it. God, please, you can't do this to me," she cried, but it didn't move me. "You're doing this for them, you've destroyed our family with your selfishness," I said, my voice filled with pain and betrayal. "You've shattered our lives into irreparable pieces. First of all, Mary, you've broken my heart," I continued. "You've shown blatant disregard for my feelings, for the man who has loved you unconditionally since the day we met, the man who works tirelessly every day to provide the life you want for yourself and the kids. You betrayed me to be with a stranger, ignoring the vows we made a decade ago in front of our families, friends, and God. You promised your body to me, Mary, and last night you made it clear that you would do as you pleased, regardless of my pleas. I never meant for it to look like that," she said. But I knew she meant every word. "I don't know why, but I didn't realize I was hurting you. I just wanted to try something new." "I love you, it wasn't about you," she replied. "It was about you and Glenn," I said, my voice full of disbelief. "Without consideration for me or our children." You felt you deserved a special night just for yourself. By doing so, you've torn our family apart. You've cost yourself your marriage to me, and probably damaged your reputation with family and friends. Maybe one day I'll forgive you, but I'll never forget, and I'll make sure everyone knows what you did. No, please, she cried. My parents will be devastated. You can't do this to me. I'm sorry, Mary, but you should have thought about that before you acted, I responded, then hung up. I felt a sense of satisfaction knowing I had defended myself and my kids. I also felt relief, knowing I had taken the first step in escaping this nightmare. The next day, I met with Lisa, the divorce lawyer Mark had recommended. She was straightforward and got to the heart of the matter quickly. She wanted to know why I was seeking a divorce and what I hoped to achieve. I explained that I wanted to divide my assets with Mary, possibly giving her the house in exchange for less cash. I also acknowledged that, despite filing for adultery, getting full custody of my kids was unlikely. However, I insisted on having unrestricted access to them and avoiding alimony payments. I played the audio evidence I had of Mary's betrayal, where she repeatedly admitted her actions with Glenn. Lisa shook her head in disbelief, finding it hard to believe that my wife had been so careless as to confess her affair in voicemails that could be used against her in court. We may need a voice recognition expert to confirm that it's your wife's voice, she explained, but unless we run into an unreasonable judge, the recordings should be admissible as evidence. We spent the rest of the hour discussing my goals with Glenn and the others at the wife-swapping party. She doubted we could get money from them, but promised to find a way to publicly expose their activities and embarrass them enough to damage their reputations. I told her that would be satisfying for me. I paid her a retainer and asked her to notify Mary quickly. She assured me it wouldn't take long and promised to keep me informed. On Tuesday afternoon, I picked up my kids from my mom's house and took them back to Mary's house. When she greeted them, she hugged and kissed them warmly, then tried to approach me. But I stepped back, causing her eyes to fill with tears, and she begged me to stay. I explained that I couldn't, but thought it was best for the kids to be at home with her. I planned to pick them up on Friday for the weekend. Mary seemed to be struggling, and I sympathized with her, but she had brought this upon herself, and her bad moment wasn't worse than what I was going through because of her actions. On Wednesday, I returned to work. I knew I couldn't neglect my job. I needed it more than ever, not just for the income, but for the mental distraction. If I lingered too much in the pain and self-pity from Mary's betrayal, I feared I'd lose my sanity, something I couldn't afford for the sake of my kids. On Thursday, I met with Johnny and Mark again, this time for dinner at a restaurant near the beach. I updated them on my kids and the divorce proceedings, and John had good news for me. He had been looking for ways to protect part of my money and found a way to do it without risking legal issues. He explained that I could put some of my money into a trust for my kids, which would be considered their property, not mine. That way, the money would be protected in case of a divorce, and my kids could still benefit from it. I appreciated his help and agreed to move forward with his plan. Together, we devised a simple plan to cause trouble at the wife-swapping club without risking legal problems. Mark had a friend who worked as a reporter for a local newspaper and believed that if he could get the McLaren's address and the schedule for the wife-swapping group, he could uncover the names of some of the participants. Mark suggested that his friend could write an editorial revealing that wife-swapping was more prevalent in our town than people thought, insinuating the involvement of certain business owners and naming them explicitly, while getting pictures of couples entering and leaving the meetings. We could create enough controversy to cause problems for the group by sharing the limited information we had with Mark, and he agreed to start investigating. With that plan in motion, we said our goodbyes until next time. My weekend with the kids was fantastic. We went shopping for new clothes, saw a movie at the theater, and spent an entire day at the beach swimming and playing frisbee. My kids were my top priority, and I promised myself I would always be there for them, no matter what. On Monday morning, Mark called me with exciting news. His reporter friend liked the idea of the story and had been planning how to get photos of the couples entering and leaving the McLaren house. Even if their faces were blurred, people would quickly recognize them in a small town like ours. If all went well, the article could be a headline by the end of the week. I kept my fingers crossed, hoping our plan would work and that the wife-swapping group would get the attention it deserved. On Wednesday, my lawyer informed me that Mary had been served with the divorce papers at our house on Friday morning. Then John called me with more good news. He had found a way to protect about a third of my money by putting it in a trust for my kids, and he had already started the process. Finally, Mark called to tell me that his friend had discovered the wife-swapping couples would be meeting again at the McLaren house on Friday night. He planned to stake out across the street in an unmarked truck, taking photos of everyone entering and leaving the house. He also wanted to interview me again about the party, and I agreed to meet with him on Saturday. If everything went well, the article could be published in next week's edition of the newspaper, causing a stir in our small town. I felt much better than I had in a while, knowing I had taken steps to protect myself and my kids, and to expose the wife-swapping group. Friday arrived, and I waited for the call I expected from Mary after she received the divorce papers. As expected, it came at 2:30. My lawyer had called to say she had been notified, and shortly after, my phone rang again. Seeing the caller ID, I knew it was Mary. I laughed to myself, wondering what she wanted. I initially considered letting it go to voicemail, but changed my mind. "Hey, Mary, what's up?" I answered. "What the hell did you do?" She said, her tone far from friendly. "That I filed for divorce, just like I said I would," I responded, "and I told you there wouldn't be a divorce, and you filed for adultery," she said, her voice rising with each word. "Spending a night with another man isn't adultery." "I have to disagree with you there, Mary," I said, my voice calm and firm. "According to Texas law, having intimacy with someone other than your spouse is considered adultery. And Glenn definitely had it with you." Tears welled up in her eyes, and she began to cry. "Why are you being so cruel?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I love you. All Glenn did was have intimacy with me a few times. It was just an adventure, my mistake." "An adventure?" I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. "I must have misunderstood, that having intimacy outside of marriage isn't adultery. How could I be so wrong? Let it go, I'm done," she said, her voice pleading. "That I warned you countless times, and I begged you not to do it, but you did it anyway," I responded, my voice growing colder with each word. "Now you have to face the consequences, and soon you'll realize that your problems aren't over." "Goodbye, Mary," I said, my voice full of finality. "Have a miserable life," and I hung up. The hardest part was that I still had feelings for Mary. Maybe I always would, but I couldn't trust her anymore, and I couldn't stay married to someone who cheated. I knew I shouldn't go to the McLaren house on Friday night, but I couldn't resist passing by once to see what was going on. I also wanted to check if Mary's car was there. Though I doubted she would attend the party this time, her car wasn't there, but she could have gone with someone else. They usually only allowed couples, but they had made an exception for her once, so who knows if they wouldn't do it again. I saw a truck parked across the street, probably where the reporter was. I wished him luck exposing them. The results would come soon. The next afternoon, Mark's reporter friend called asking for privileged information, which I gladly provided. He mentioned that he had taken more than 100 photos and recognized over a dozen prominent couples from the town. Interestingly, these weren't the same couples seen leaving the residence 2 hours later. Mark had given him a photo of my wife, and he confirmed she wasn't among those entering or leaving the McLaren house. He wanted me to describe what I had seen and experienced when I was inside the house during one of the key parties. I did my best to explain how the keys were placed in a bowl. Although I never witnessed the part where the men picked a key and went off with the woman it belonged to, I had a good idea of what had happened from my wife's description and by listening to other couples' conversations about past parties. Before ending the call, he asked if he could suggest that he knew of a marriage that had ended because of these parties, leaving the children to deal with the divorce of their parents. I said he could, as long as no names were mentioned. The article appeared in the Sunday edition of the newspaper, causing quite a stir. It made the front page with a large photo of couples entering and leaving, their faces blurred. The story continued for 4 more pages with many additional photos. Despite efforts to hide faces, it was easy to identify the participants by their cars and clothing, as they were prominent members of our small-town society. By Monday, the story was the talk of the town. Several ministers were interviewed about the decline of morality, and civic leaders condemned the situation. Lawsuits were filed, but nothing came of them. Some businesses suffered, and many couples ended up in divorce court. For me, it was a reckoning and revenge for the pain I endured from losing my wife and family. Even if people realized I had been betrayed, I didn't care. I had my revenge, and that was all that mattered. Mary continued trying to win me back for months, but I stood firm in my decision. The divorce went through, and I got joint custody of our kids. We split the time with them. When I had them for the month, Mary had them on weekends, and vice versa. It wasn't ideal, but we were managing. Since Mary didn't contest anything in the divorce, I decided not to share the recordings of her confessing her affair with her family or friends. As for the couples involved in the wife-swapping parties, some ended up divorcing and leaving the town, perhaps because of the scandal. Mary started dating again, though I wasn't sure she fully understood why her actions had hurt me so much. But that was her problem now, and I wished her luck with her future husband. I went out with some nice women, but I still hadn't found the right one to settle down with. Some suggested moving in together, but I remained cautious about giving a woman a key to my place. It had been a tough year, but I came out stronger on the other side. I learned a lot about myself and what I wanted in a partner. I also learned that I was capable of handling anything life threw at me, as long as I had my kids by my side. I knew I would never forget what Mary had done, but I also knew I had to move forward with my life. I couldn't let her actions define me or stop me from finding happiness again. While sitting on the beach, watching my kids play in the sand, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I knew everything would be okay as long as I had my family and friends by my side. I took a deep breath of the salty air and smiled, knowing the future was bright and full of possibilities. I was ready to face any challenge that came my way, knowing I would come out stronger on the other side. And who knows, maybe one day I would find a woman who would love me and my kids unconditionally, a woman who would never betray me or our family. But until then, I was happy with my life and the love that surrounded me. I looked out at the horizon, watching the sun slowly sink into the ocean, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. It was a beautiful sight, and I felt grateful for the simple things in life. When the sun disappeared below the horizon, I gathered my kids and we returned to the car, ready to face whatever tomorrow would bring. I knew I was a survivor, and nothing could break me, not even an unfaithful spouse. I started the car and left the parking lot, heading toward an uncertain future but one full of hope. I knew I had everything I needed to be happy, and that was enough for me. As I drove down the road, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in the rearview mirror. I looked older, wiser, and stronger than I had ever been before. I smiled to myself, knowing I was ready for whatever life had in store for me. With that thought, I turned up the radio and sang along with the music, letting the wind blow through my hair, while the worries of the past faded into the night. I was free, and nothing could stop me anymore. Story 2. My wife, 31 years old, and I, 30 years old, were together for 3 years and married for 1. We were both very athletic people. We actually met in a gym and started flirting immediately. It was so easy to be around her and talk. I had never talked so much before I met her. We became best friends and lovers. When we got married, our parents were just as excited as us. My parents paid for most of our wedding and helped us purchase furniture and things to start off a new gym opened by our house, so we got memberships right away. I was really optimistic and hopeful at this point in my life. I really had no idea how challenging marriage could be. After just 1 year of marriage, it was like the infatuation wore off, and we started to get irritated with each other. She felt like I wasn't opening up or communicating enough, but sometimes I just wasn't in the mood to talk. Nothing was bothering me, I just didn't have anything to say. We got through this once by talking things out, acknowledging our differences, and promising to focus more on each other's needs instead of our own. Then my wife suddenly started having her gym trainer over to her house twice a week. Her reasoning was that she hit a plateau and bringing the trainer to her would help her reach her new goals. Well, I wasn't born yesterday. We didn't have weights or machines in our house, and I knew our relationship was getting older. My wife was naturally a very flirty woman that I didn't want to be overly controlling and tell her I didn't want him in her house. I just wanted to see what she'd do with this freedom and trust. We had a hired security guard at our home, so I didn't feel overly anxious when I had to go to work. After the second week she had her trainer at the house, I arrived home and asked him if my wife was behaving. He just shrugged uncomfortably. I asked him what he thought was going on, and he said he couldn't give me a fair guess because each time she had the trainer over, she sent him on a break. I was appalled. My wife was dismissing the man who could tell me if she was cheating. That I asked if I could pay him extra to keep an eye on my wife, even if he had to lie to her and pretend he was going on a break. He agreed. It was nearly summer, so my wife had the side windows of the house open. On the day our security guard snapped pictures for me, I was at work. For days after I asked him to watch her, I received them. It was like a slap in the face. I didn't actually expect my wife to be sleeping with her trainer, but my small suspicion and bribery led to the brutal truth. I was being cheated on by a shallow, flirty, sleazy woman that I tried to call my wife. I trusted her and gave her everything I could offer, but it wasn't enough for her to try and live an honorable life with me as her husband. All these thoughts and more rushed through my head as I printed the picture evidence and drove home from work. I thanked the security guard with a wave the moment before I unlocked and shoved the door open. They must have heard the door unlocking because they quickly got into positions that looked like training. With trembling hands and a faltering voice, I showed them the printed pictures of what they had just done minutes earlier. The trainer's face turned ghostly white. He didn't want me to kill him, so he ran out instantly and sped away in his car. My wife dropped to her knees. She said this was the first and only major mistake she'd ever made in her life. She promised that if I forgave her for this, she would become the perfect example of what a wife should be to her husband. I completely doubted this, but am not a very expressive person, and the level of emotion I was feeling was too much to bear. I reverted back to spy mode, knowing I wouldn't stay married to this woman, no matter what. She would suffer for this. I told her that only a loyal, good wife deserves the things I provided for her, like jewelry, a hairstylist, a car, high-end clothing, and shoes. Everything. So, I packed it all away and locked it in the trunk of my car. It took all day, and my wife was sobbing almost the entire time, even though she swore to do everything I asked of her. She didn't help me. I think she might have suspected I was going to divorce her, but she was too afraid to ask. She also didn't want to tell her parents anything about what was going on because they raised her right. They wouldn't be dashing to her rescue just because she let another man inside her home. No responsible or honorable woman does that. She slept on the couch for a week without her normal routine or privileges. She actually cleaned a lot in the hopes that would earn my forgiveness. While she scrubbed the floors like Cinderella, I plopped divorce papers down. She really lost it when she realized none of her begging and sobbing worked on me. She left the house to call her parents. They came and got her, but only long enough to lecture her, buy her some Walmart clothes, and bring her back to my house. It was humorous and frustrating at the same time. Eventually, the divorce was done through the process. She was sleeping on the couch of our home until she was ordered to leave. She tried asking if she was entitled to half of my business, and the judge laughed at her. He shook his head and told her she had a lot of growing up to do, that she lost a great man and provider because of her actions. She didn't even have enough patience in her marriage to ensure she was entitled to half my business upon divorce. She made it clear that she wasn't very bright and she only thought about herself. This story depicts the destruction of a marriage due to the wife's infidelity. It conveys strong emotions and internal conflicts of the main character but raises questions with its vengeful and controlling reaction to the betrayal. Overall, it's a gripping drama about love, trust, and the consequences of deceit.